Supercars. They're the pinnacle of the automotive world, the bedroom pin-up for young girls and boys, and the ultimate opportunity for engineers and designers to let their imagination run wild. They must be pretty, fun, loud, and whip it fast on both the straights and corners. And while today's supercars are almost unrecognisable from those of 20 years ago, our methods of testing them are pretty similar. Welcome then to Cadwell Park Circuit and 2022's most hyped supercar pairing, the Ferrari 296 GTB and the McLaren Artura. Both rear-wheel drive, both blessed with many hundreds of horses, and both taking advantage of the move to electrification in order to boost both usability and speed. For today though, we're only interested in the latter. The classic track test may feel old hat in such company, but that doesn't mean it's not effective and damn good fun to be a part of. Although, in case you do want to know what these cars are like on road, then be sure to read the December 2022 issue of Car Magazine for our verdict. For now though, we'll start with the Ferrari. Not for any particular reason other than the fact it's the car I know best. We've had it on our sports car giant test in North Wales, not to mention trying its GTS Spider sibling in Italy just a few weeks ago. An 800 brake horsepower rear-wheel drive Italian supercar around one of the narrowest and tightest tracks in the world, it's a million miles away from the familiar territory of Ferrari's Fiorano test track. If the 296 GTB can put a show on here, then it really will be the supercar for any occasion.
Now I'll try not to bore you too much with facts and figures about these cars, because if you're watching this video then chances are you'll know a lot about them already, but some things do need highlighting, such as with this Ferrari it's got a 2.9 litre V6 engine teamed with an electric motor, and together they make 818 brake horsepower. 818 in a road car. 0 to 62 miles an hour is 2.9 seconds. 0 to 124 miles an hour is just 7.3. And for reference, a Formula 2 car does it in 6.6. So it's only 0.7 of a second slower than a Formula 2 car. And it's got Apple CarPlay and climate control and all the creature comforts you want for driving through Miami. So what does 818 horsepower feel like in a road car? Well, the honest answer is I can't really tell you without putting a big fat R rating on this video. It hits you like a train. For the powertrain, you've got various modes to use depending on what you want the electric motor and the engine to do. If you want it in the fastest possible mode, then you need to be in qualifying, and that sets everything to maximum attack. And Ferrari actually reckons that you're getting an extra 40 or so brake horsepower from performance to qualifying mode. And with 818 brake horsepower, maybe that's not as noticeable as it should be, but it's still a big chunk of extra power.
The interaction between the V6 engine and e-motor is utterly seamless. The latter is like a more versatile version of nitrous, filling in where the engine isn't quite up to speed and backing it up when it is. Between the torque, the e-motor and the top-end power, the result is a hard-charging bullet train of a car. The only way to accelerate faster is with a catapult. It sounds pretty good too. Okay, maybe, or rather definitely not as good as Ferrari's used to, but considering the war on great sounding cars, Maranello's done an admirable job. Notes from the Piccolo V12 are fed directly into the cabin via the patented hot tube, and they're worth hearing. It's a Ferrari soundtrack alright, just one that's been played with different instruments.
Speaking of different instruments, Ferrari still doesn't use carbon tubs in its mainstream supercars, and it isn't looking like it's going to change anytime soon. There's a number of reasons for that. They'll talk about repairability and the fact that their own methods are just as good, but what it means is that because McLaren, of course, are known for their carbon tubs, we've got two very different approaches. We've got the aluminium chassis versus McLaren's carbon tub, although admittedly there is an aluminium subframe on the McLaren.
What's not up for debate is how well the Ferrari allows you to build up to its full ability. Yes, it's still intimidating when you first get in, but the various systems and Manettino modes quickly give you confidence in what is, at the end of the day, an unbelievable chassis. This car is fitted with the more focused fixed dampers of the Assetto Fiorano pack, and while that makes for a more unforgiving drive on road, it more than makes up for it on track. In race mode, it eggs you on, safe in the knowledge that there's a fallback should things go pear-shaped, yet switch everything off and the raw talent of the chassis, powertrain and driver is there for all to see.
Coming through the mountain, what really strikes you is the total lack of inertia over the front end. It makes it feel almost weightless. I mean, this car weighs over 1.5 tons, but coming through there, it felt like it was flying almost. Oh, wipers going on. Right, coming into a quicker corner now. Hard on the brakes. Brake feel is utterly superb. Brake-by-wire system. Ferrari's done a wonderful job at tuning that. Hats off to whoever calibrated it. In race mode, there's a tiny little bit of push at the front end. So it's just naturally weighted towards a bit of understeer. And that lets you really lean on it. That's extraordinary. That is unbelievable. Oh, my blood pressure, my heart rate, everything's going crazy. Oh, if I was going to be critical, if I was going to try and be critical, it's hard, but the steering, there perhaps should be more feel. I suspect the McLaren is going to leave it behind in that sector. And also the steering wheel, all the buttons on it. Man, what's going on there? Keep hitting every button as I'm driving round, it's distracting. But other than that, this is a masterpiece. This is an utter masterpiece. And I'm pleased we took it on track because you need to do both to appreciate it. It just has so much to offer. You could spend a whole day here and just build up bit by bit, and that's what I love about it. It doesn't matter whether you're Lewis Capaldi or Lewis Hamilton, you'll still be able to exploit it and enjoy it.
And now onto the McLaren. And the first thing to note is that it is down on power compared with the Ferrari. Together, its e-motor and 3-litre V6 engine deliver a combined output of 671 brake horsepower, down by almost 150. There's also a large gap in power to weight as both cars come in at around 1.5 tons, meaning you're looking at about 552 brake horsepower for the Ferrari and 454 brake horsepower per ton for the McLaren.
That is a big gap in power, but let's not kid ourselves. These are both monumentally quick cars, no matter how you measure them. It's just that this one doesn't quite have that last layer of light year speed. To give you an idea of how to set this car up for track, it's very easy actually. All you need to do is change the individual mode selectors. You've got one for the powertrain, like in the Ferrari, and one for the chassis. And there's various modes, but obviously I'm in track on both. And for the powertrain, again, like the Ferrari, that means maximum attack, everything focused on giving you the best possible chance of getting a really good lap time. And actually the difference between the sport and the track setting is night and day. It feels softer, more rounded off in the former, but in the latter, it suddenly just takes an urgency pill and it really hits home, especially the torque, which incidentally isn't that much different to the Ferrari. They've both got over 500 pounds-foot of torque, and this has only got about 10 or 15 pounds-foot or so less, and it feels it. It's got a really good hit from low down, but then when you get above, say, 5,000, 5,500 RPM, it doesn't quite crescendo like the Ferrari does. That really builds into a peak. This, in some ways, the engine feels quite monotone. It doesn't sound anywhere near as good as the Ferrari, but it's damn effective. To give some powertrain comparisons, I think the gearbox in this, it's not quite as snappy on the up changes, especially as the Ferrari. And also we spoke about outright speed. Well, the difference, what does that feel like? In this, you've just got that bit more time on the straights to take stock of what you're doing and when the next corner is coming up. And around here, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Oh my God, it's narrow. A lot of people call Cadwell Park the English version of the Nürburgring, but I don't think you'd have GT3 cars going around here somehow.
Some have suggested that the Artura could and should sound better than it does. It's a gruff, mechanical sound and it's not on the same level as the Ferrari, but on track that matters little. The sound is the supporting act for an engine that, while impressive, also plays second fiddle to the chassis. Like all McLarens, it's what it does between the flat-out straights that really stands out. For the Artura, McLaren has gone with a multi-link rear suspension layout rather than the double wishbone setup of previous road cars. The benefit being greater toe stiffness that, together with the low centre of gravity, makes the car even more stable under heavy braking.
The brakes themselves are carbon ceramics. They're 6-piston, 390mm at the front, 4-piston, 380 at the rear. And what's interesting is that the Ferrari, it regenerates the battery under braking. It charges the battery. In this, it doesn't do that. Everything is focused towards stopping the car as cleanly as possible. And you've got to say fair play to McLaren for that, because most plug-in hybrids, the braking is a big part of how they replenish power. But in this, they've completely abandoned it. And you're probably expecting me to say that that means the brake feel is superior. But actually, I'm not sure it is. And that's testament to what Ferrari's done with their braking system. There's a light point at the start of this pedal. And then actually, when you do really lean on them, you realise that the Ferrari's brakes are noticeably stronger. The steering feel, though, as suspected in this, is significantly better than the Ferrari. You can really feel what the front two wheels are doing. In the Ferrari, it's an electric power-assisted steering system. In this, it's electro-hydraulic, so there's a bit more of a real connection to the road. However, the steering on the Ferrari, with its Assetto Fiorano pack, it's a much, much faster rack. On the road, it feels perhaps a bit too much. But out here on the track, that's when it starts to come into its own. The McLaren, you have to put way more lock on it. It actually feels in comparison like there's a light spot around the middle and you're having to put way more lock on like I am there. In the Ferrari, that just required a little flick of the wrist and you were turned in. In this, you've got to give it more. And I think that does take away a little bit from the purity. Ooh, we're getting brake fade as well. Carbon brakes aren't quite as robust as the Ferraris either.
As I pushed the McLaren more and more, two things became clear. One, its powertrain was outclassed by the Ferrari for sheer excitement and ability, and two, its overall limits were understandably lower on track than the 296, although this did mean that I was able to reach them sooner. The balance is more front limited, yet you can still carry huge speed into corners knowing that the rear end will stay planted. I found myself wanting to squeeze more and more out of it, even if I knew that I was going slower than in the Ferrari.
I will say though that the steering wheel on this, the total antithesis to the Ferrari, there's no buttons on it, it's just the wheel and the carbon paddle, one-piece carbon paddle behind with this lovely gear change action. It just feels purer and less distracting, which counts for a hell of a lot. Coming up to the mountain section, hard on the brakes, not as late as you can in the Ferrari. Turn it in, really nice grip on the front, good stability on the rear. In some ways these cars are similar, and in others they really do differ, especially in feel. The Ferrari feels like it's flying through the air, and then it's just skating over the tarmac. In this, you really do feel like you're more hunkered down, you feel like you're sitting lower, it feels narrower, it feels like the more malleable tool. But the Ferrari definitely has the edge in what it can deliver. Question is, Are its capabilities just a bit too much? And does the McLaren let you have more fun by being able to exploit more of it more of the time?
After a full day on track at Cadwell Park, my thoughts on the two cars were clear. On paper, they share more than a fleeting similarity, yet in reality, the traits and feel of the McLaren and Ferrari differed considerably. The early morning rain suited the sure-footedness and predictability of the McLaren, with its more feelsome steering and generally less intimidating package, making it the more accessible track weapon when the conditions weren't ideal. However, as the tarmac dried and the limits increased, the sheer ability and frenetic excitement of the Ferrari shone through. Its incredible powertrain outshines the McLaren's, while the agility and fleet-footed feel, even on a track as tight as Cadwell Park, bordered on witchcraft. We weren't able to do lap times on the day, yet had we have got the stopwatch out, the Ferrari would, in my opinion, have been the faster machine by a clear margin. With all of the above in mind, the 296 GTB is the superior track car. However, the McLaren's considerably lower price tag can't be ignored and leaves clear headroom for a faster, more focused version to come along in future to create the mother of all rematches. Until then though, Maranello takes home the spoils.